Ted Hayes was 38 years old, and 3 months ago, he thought he was about to give his wife the surprise of her life. Instead, what he discovered that cold November afternoon in 2024 shattered everything he believed about the woman he loved for 12 years. But here's the thing nobody tells you about life's worst moments. Sometimes they lead you exactly where you need to be. Ted worked as a senior project manager for a mid-sized construction firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. Not rich, not poor, solidly middle class with a decent salary of around $87,000 a year. His wife, Rebecca, had been driving the same silver Honda Accord since before they got married. That car had seen better days. The air conditioning barely worked, the paint was fading, and last winter she'd gotten stranded twice when it wouldn't start in the cold. Every time Ted saw her climbing into that tired old vehicle, heading to her job as an elementary school teacher, something twisted in his chest. For 6 months, Ted had been setting aside money. Not from their joint account. Rebecca monitored that thing like a hawk, always worried about their mortgage and their 7-year-old daughter Emma's college fund. No, Ted had been taking on weekend consulting gigs, reviewing blueprints for smaller contractors who needed a second opinion. 500 here, 800 there. By early November, he'd saved just over $2,800, enough for a reliable used SUV with low mileage. Something safe, something Rebecca deserved. He'd found the perfect vehicle at a dealership in South Charlotte, a 3-year-old Toyota RAV4 in deep blue, Rebecca's favorite color, only 31,000 miles, excellent condition, priced at $26,500. Ted had negotiated it down to $25,800, and he'd arranged everything in secret. The plan was simple. Take off work early on Friday, November 15th, pick up the car, tie a giant red bow on it, and surprise Rebecca when she got home from school at 4 o'clock. Ted had imagined her face 1,000 times. The shock, the joy, the tears. Emma would be so excited. She'd been begging for them to get a big car like her friend's mom drove. Everything was perfect. Everything was planned. He had no idea what was actually waiting for him. As we go on with this story of shocking family secrets and devastating betrayals, I want you to do something for me. I want you to kindly subscribe to this channel and like this video. There are brand new stories here every day, and each story is interesting and would teach very valuable lessons. Also, tell me in the comment, what is that unique thing about the city where you're watching from? The morning of November 15th started like any other Friday. Ted kissed Rebecca goodbye at 7:30 as she headed out to Jefferson Elementary, where she taught 3rd grade. She looked beautiful in her navy dress, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, smiling that smile that had made him fall in love with her 14 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. "Have a good day," she'd said, touching his cheek. "Don't work too hard." "Never do," he'd replied, grinning. If only she knew what he was really planning. Ted waited until 9 o'clock before calling his boss, David, with a carefully rehearsed excuse about a dental emergency. David, who knew about the surprise Ted had needed someone to cover an afternoon meeting, gave him the all-clear with a knowing chuckle. "Go get that car, man. Rebecca's going to lose it." The dealership visit went smoothly. Ted signed the final papers, handed over his cashier's check, and drove off the lot at 11:45 in the pristine blue RAV4. The new car smell filled his nostrils as he headed to the party supply store for the biggest bow they had. He was practically vibrating with excitement. Ted arrived home at 12:30. Their modest 2-story house sat on a quiet street in the Hickory Grove neighborhood, with a small front yard and a 2-car garage. Rebecca wouldn't be home for another 3.5 hours. Emma was at school until 3, and Ted's mother was picking her up and taking her for ice cream. Part of the plan to keep her occupied while he set up the surprise. He pulled the RAV4 into the driveway, positioning it perfectly so Rebecca would see it the moment she turned onto their street. The massive red bow looked ridiculous and perfect on the hood. Ted stepped back, pulled out his phone, and snapped a few pictures. Wait until the guys at work saw this. That's when he noticed Rebecca's Honda Accord parked on the street, half a block down. Ted froze, his smile fading. Why was Rebecca's car here? She should be at school. Jefferson Elementary was 20 minutes away. Had something happened? Was she sick? Had there been an emergency? His heart began to pound as he jogged toward the house. The front door was locked. He fumbled with his keys, his hands suddenly clumsy. As he pushed the door open, he called out, "Becca, are you home? Is everything okay?" Silence greeted him, not the empty silence of a vacant house, but something thicker. Something wrong. Ted moved through the living room, his construction boots heavy on the hardwood floor they'd installed together 2 summers ago. Everything looked normal. Rebecca's purse sat on the kitchen counter next to her phone. Her phone. She never went anywhere without her phone. "Rebecca!" His voice was louder now, edged with concern. Then he heard it. A sound from upstairs. Not quite a voice, but movement. The creak of their bedroom floor. Relief washed over him for half a second. She was homesick, probably sleeping. He'd wake her gently, surprise her with the car. Maybe it would cheer her up. Ted climbed the stairs 2 at a time. Their bedroom door was closed, which was unusual. They always left it open during the day. He reached for the handle, turned it quietly, and pushed the door open. What he saw in that moment would replay in his mind every single day for the next 3 months. Rebecca was there all right, but she wasn't sick. She wasn't sleeping. She was sitting on their bed, the bed Ted had surprised her with for their 10th anniversary, wearing a dress he'd never seen before. A red dress that probably cost more than she spent on clothes in 6 months. Her hair was styled elaborately, her makeup perfect. And she was laughing, actually laughing, her head thrown back in genuine delight. She wasn't alone. Sitting beside her, close enough that their knees touched, was a man Ted had never seen before. He looked about 40, wearing an expensive gray suit that probably cost more than Ted's entire wardrobe. Handsome in that polished, corporate way. And on Rebecca's laptop screen, propped up on the bed between them, was a video call. 2 more people, a man and a woman, both dressed professionally, smiled from what looked like an upscale office somewhere. The man next to Rebecca had his hand on her shoulder. Ted stood in the doorway, and time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His brain couldn't process what he was seeing. This wasn't an affair, at least not the kind he'd imagined when the worst-case scenarios had occasionally crept into his mind during their 12 years of marriage. This was something else, something that looked almost professional? Rebecca's eyes snapped to the doorway. Her face went through a rapid series of expressions. Shock, panic, guilt, and then something Ted couldn't quite identify. Something that looked almost like defiance. "Ted," she breathed, her hand flying to her chest. "What are you? You're supposed to be at work." The man in the suit turned, his expression shifting from surprise to something calculating in less than a second. He stood smoothly, extending his hand as if they were meeting at a business conference rather than in Ted's own bedroom. "You must be the husband," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "I'm Preston Caldwell. We were just—" "Get out of my house." Ted's voice came out low and dangerous, surprising even himself. He'd never been a violent man, never even raised his voice to Rebecca, but something primal had ignited in his chest. "Right now." Preston held up his hands in a placating gesture, but Ted could see the smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. This man wasn't afraid. If anything, he looked amused. "Ted, please." Rebecca stood up, her voice pleading. "This isn't what you think. Let me explain." "Explain?" Ted's voice cracked. "You're in our bedroom with another man while I'm at work, while our daughter's at school. What exactly is there to explain, Rebecca?" The people on the laptop screen had gone silent, watching the scene unfold like it was a reality show. One of them, the woman, looked uncomfortable. The man just looked curious. "I said get out," Ted repeated, focusing on Preston, who was now gathering a leather briefcase from beside the bed. A briefcase. In their bedroom. What the hell was happening? Preston moved toward the door with unhurried confidence, pausing as he passed Ted. "She was going to tell you eventually," he said quietly, his cologne expensive and cloying. "You might want to hear her out before you do something you'll regret." Then he was gone, his footsteps descending the stairs, the front door opening and closing with a soft click. Rebecca stood in the middle of their bedroom, tears streaming down her face, her perfectly applied makeup beginning to smear. "Please, Ted, please let me explain. It's not an affair. I swear to you, it's not what you think. Then what is it? Ted demanded, his whole body shaking now. What is it, Rebecca? Because from where I'm standing, I just found my wife dressed up in our bedroom with another man, having some kind of secret video meeting while I'm supposed to be at work. She closed the laptop, cutting off the two observers who'd been watching their marriage implode. When she looked up at him, there was something in her eyes Ted had never seen before, something that looked almost like resentment. I got a job offer, she said quietly, 3 months ago, a really good one. Ted felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. A job offer? That's what this is about? A job offer? Not just any job offer, Ted. A senior position at Meridian Educational Consulting in Atlanta, on starting salary of $145,000 a year. That's nearly double what we make combined right now. The number hit him like a physical blow. $145,000. He made $87,000 and felt proud of it. Rebecca made $52,000 as a teacher. Together, they'd built a comfortable life. Not extravagant, but comfortable. That's... Ted's mind spun, trying to process. That's amazing, Becca. That's incredible. Why wouldn't you tell me? Why all the secrecy? Rebecca's face hardened slightly. Because there's a catch, Ted. There's always a catch with opportunities like this. What catch? She took a deep breath, and Ted saw her hands trembling. The position is in Atlanta. We'd have to move. And Preston, that was Preston Caldwell, the senior partner. He's been mentoring me, helping me prepare for the role. Today was my final interview with the board. I took a personal day from school. Ted felt the room tilting. Move? To Atlanta? That's 4 hours away. What about my job? What about Emma's school? What about your job? Rebecca's voice rose sharply, surprising him. Ted, do you understand what I'm offering? What this could mean for our family? We could pay off the mortgage in 5 years. Emma could go to any college she wants without loans. We could actually have a life instead of just surviving paycheck to paycheck. We're not just surviving, Ted said, his voice hoarse. We're doing fine. We're happy. At least I thought we were. Are we? Rebecca shot back. You work 60-hour weeks during busy seasons. I'm driving a car that's falling apart. We haven't taken a real vacation in 3 years because we can't afford it. Is that your definition of happy? Ted thought about the RAV4 sitting in their driveway, the red bow probably looking foolish now in the afternoon sun. 6 months of weekend work, $28,000 saved in secret to give her something he thought she needed, something he thought would make her happy. When were you going to tell me, he asked quietly, about any of this? Rebecca looked away. I was going to tell you tonight, after I heard back from the board. Preston said they'd make their final decision by 5 o'clock. Preston, Ted repeated, the name bitter on his tongue. How long have you been talking to Preston, Rebecca? 3 months, she admitted, since he first reached out about the position. He saw my presentation at the state education conference last summer. He said I was brilliant, that I was wasting my talent in a public school classroom. Something cold settled in Ted's chest. 3 months. For 3 months, his wife had been having secret meetings, secret phone calls, secret plans with a man in an expensive suit who looked at her the way Ted used to look at her. A man who'd been in their bedroom, sitting on their bed, touching her shoulder. Did you sleep with him? The question came out before Ted could stop it. Rebecca's eyes flashed with anger. How dare you? After 12 years of marriage, how dare you ask me that? How dare I? You've been lying to me for 3 months, meeting with this man behind my back. You took the day off work and didn't tell me. He was in our bedroom, Rebecca. Our bedroom. Because this house is too small for a private video conference, she shouted back. Because Emma's toys are all over the living room, and the kitchen is a mess, and I needed somewhere professional looking for the board to see me. Preston came over to help me set up the lighting and the camera angle. That's it. That's all. Ted wanted to believe her. God, how he wanted to believe her. But something didn't add up. Why didn't you just tell me? 3 months ago, when this first came up, why didn't you tell me? Rebecca's anger seemed to deflate slightly, replaced by something sadder. Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. I knew you'd make it about your job, your convenience, your life in Charlotte. I knew you wouldn't even consider it. That's not fair, Ted protested. But even as he said it, he wondered if she was right. Would he have been supportive? Or would he have immediately started listing all the reasons they couldn't move? Make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you have not, because the ending of this story will blow your mind. And drop a comment below telling me what you think Ted should do next. Rebecca sat back down on the bed, her red dress crinkling. I've been teaching third grade for 11 years, Ted. 11 years of the same curriculum, the same parent-teacher conferences, the same tiny salary increases that barely keep pace with inflation. When Preston reached out, when he showed me what I could do, what I could become, it was like someone turned on a light in a room I didn't even know was dark. So this is about money? Ted asked, though he knew it wasn't that simple. It's about possibility, Rebecca said softly. It's about being more than just Emma's mom and Ted's wife and Miss Hayes, who teaches third grade. It's about being Rebecca Caldwell Hayes, Senior Director of Educational Innovation at one of the fastest growing consulting firms in the Southeast. Rebecca Caldwell Hayes? The hyphenated name sent another jolt through Ted. You're taking his name? It's not his name. It's the company name, she said, but she wouldn't meet his eyes. It's just professional branding. Preston explained. Preston explained, Ted interrupted, his voice hollow. Preston seems to have explained a lot of things. They stood in silence for a long moment, the weight of 3 months of secrets pressing down on them. Outside, Ted could hear a neighbor's dog barking, normal life continuing while his world crumbled. I bought you a car, he said finally, the words feeling absurd now. I've been working weekends for 6 months. I saved $28,000. I bought you a Toyota RAV4. It's sitting in our driveway right now with a big red bow on it. I was going to surprise you when you got home from school. Rebecca's face crumpled. Ted, I thought you'd be so happy, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought it would solve everything. The air conditioning, the starting problems, all of it. I thought I was being a good husband. You are a good husband, Rebecca said, tears flowing freely now. Ted, you are. That's what makes this so hard. Then choose me, Ted said, and he hated how desperate he sounded. Choose us. Choose this life we built together. Tell Preston and Meridian Educational Consulting, thank you, but no thank you. Rebecca looked at him for a long moment, and Ted saw his answer in her eyes before she spoke. I can't, she whispered. Ted, I can't. This is my one chance. If I don't take it, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been. And what about me? Ted asked. What about Emma? Do we get a say in this? Of course you do, Rebecca said quickly. That's why I wanted to tell you properly, to discuss it as a family. You could find a job in Atlanta. There are tons of construction firms there, probably paying better than what you make here. Emma could go to better schools. We could have a fresh start. I don't want a fresh start, Ted said. I want my life. Our life. The one we built together in this house, in this neighborhood, in this city. Rebecca stood up, smoothing her dress. Then maybe that's the problem, Ted. Maybe you're too comfortable. Maybe you've stopped dreaming. The words hit him like a slap. I dream, he said quietly. I dream about you being happy, about Emma growing up safe, about us growing old together. Maybe those aren't ambitious enough dreams for you anymore. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. I need time to think, Rebecca said, moving past him toward the door. I need to clear my head. They're going to call you at 5, Ted said. Aren't they? To tell you whether you got the job? She nodded. And when they do, what are you going to say? Rebecca paused in the doorway, her back to him. I don't know yet, Ted. I honestly don't know. Then she was gone, her footsteps fading down the stairs, the front door opening and closing. Through the bedroom window, Ted watched her walk to her old Honda Accord, climb in, and drive away without even glancing at the blue RAV4 with its ridiculous red bow. He stood alone in their bedroom, surrounded by the life they'd built together. The photos on the dresser, their wedding day, Emma's birth, family vacations to Myrtle Beach. The quilt Rebecca's grandmother had made them as a wedding gift. The paint color they'd chosen together after 3 trips to Home Depot. Debating between whisper gray and agreeable gray. His phone buzzed again. This time he pulled it out. A text from his mother. Emma had extra whipped cream on her sundae. Want me to bring her home around 4:30? Ted looked at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Maybe keep her a little longer? Having a rough day." His mother's response came immediately. "Everything okay?" Ted didn't know how to answer that. He typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally settling on, "Not sure yet. We'll call you soon." He walked downstairs and out the front door. The RAV4 sat in the driveway, exactly as he'd left it, gleaming in the afternoon sun. Ted approached it slowly, reached up, and pulled the red bow off the hood. It came away easily, leaving no mark. He stood there holding the ridiculous bow, and that's when he started to cry. Not quiet tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere primal in his chest. For 6 months, he'd worked extra hours, sacrificed his weekends, denied himself small pleasures, all to save enough money to buy his wife a car. A car she didn't even know about. A car that was supposed to fix things he didn't know were broken. But they were broken. Maybe they had been for a while, and he'd just been too blind to see it. Ted climbed into the RAV4 and sat in the driver's seat, the new car smell mixing with the salt of his tears. He thought about Rebecca in that red dress, sitting next to Preston Caldwell, laughing in a way he hadn't seen her laugh in months, maybe years. He thought about the hyphenated name, Rebecca Caldwell Hayes. He thought about Emma, who would be home soon, expecting her usual Friday night with both parents ordering pizza and watching a movie together. And he thought about the question Preston had posed as he left. You might want to hear her out before you do something you'll regret. What was there to regret? Standing up for his marriage? Refusing to uproot their entire life for a job opportunity that had come with 3 months of secrets and lies? Or was the regret in holding Rebecca back, in being the anchor that kept her from flying? Ted didn't have answers. All he had was a brand new car that suddenly felt like the loneliest place in the world, and a marriage that might have ended the moment Rebecca decided not to tell him the truth 3 months ago. His phone buzzed a third time. Another text, this one from a number he didn't recognize. "Ted, this is Preston Caldwell. I know you're angry, but there are things about this situation you don't understand. Can we talk? Man to man?" Ted stared at the message, rage building in his chest. This man, this stranger, had the audacity to text him? To ask to talk man to man after being caught in Ted's bedroom with Ted's wife? He deleted the message without responding, but he couldn't delete the questions swirling in his mind. What was Preston's real interest in Rebecca? What exactly had been happening during these 3 months of mentoring? And why did Ted have the sick feeling that he was only seeing the tip of a very large, very dangerous iceberg? At 4:45, Ted's mother called. "Ted, honey, Emma's getting restless. Is it okay to bring her home now?" "Yeah," Ted said, his voice rough. "Bring her home." "Are you sure you're okay?" "I'm fine, Mom, just bring her home." He hung up before she could ask more questions. Then he sat in the driveway. In the car he'd bought for a wife who might not want it, waiting for a daughter who didn't know her whole world was about to change. At 4:58, Rebecca's Honda Accord pulled back into the neighborhood. She parked on the street again, and Ted watched her sit in the car, staring at her phone. At 5 o'clock exactly, he saw her answer a call. From the driveway, even 50 feet away, he could see her face transform. She was smiling, actually smiling. When she hung up 2 minutes later, she sat in the car for another long moment. Then she got out, walked toward the house, and saw Ted sitting in the RAV4. Their eyes met through the windshield. And without saying a single word, Ted knew. He knew what her answer had been. He knew what her choice was. He knew in that moment that nothing would ever be the same again. But what Ted didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have known sitting in that driveway on that cold November afternoon, was that Preston Caldwell and Meridian Educational Consulting had secrets of their own. Secrets that would make the next 3 months the most intense of Ted's life. Secrets that involved his wife, his marriage, and a truth so twisted that when it finally came to light, everyone involved would wish they'd made very different choices. They had no idea what was coming. None of them did. Rebecca walked toward the RAV4, her phone still clutched in her hand, and Ted could see she'd been crying too. But there was something else in her expression. Determination, maybe, or resignation. She tapped on the passenger window. Ted unlocked the doors, and she slid into the passenger seat beside him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just sat in the new car that was supposed to have been a celebration, breathing in the leather smell and the weight of all their unspoken words. "I got it," Rebecca said finally, her voice small. "They offered me the position. I start January 2nd. Ted's hands gripped the steering wheel, even though the car wasn't running. "Congratulations," he managed to say, though the word felt like ash in his mouth. "Ted, did you say yes?" Rebecca hesitated, and in that hesitation, Ted felt something inside him crack. "I told them I needed the weekend to discuss it with my family." "But you want to say yes?" It wasn't a question. Rebecca didn't pretend otherwise. "Yes, I want to say yes." They sat in silence as Ted's mother's car pulled into the driveway behind them. Emma bounded out, her face lit up with joy, ice cream stains on her school shirt. "Daddy! Daddy! Grandma let me get gummy bears on my Sunday. And look!" She pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. "Is this our new car? Is it ours? It's so pretty." Ted forced a smile and climbed out of the driver's seat. "Yeah, baby girl. It's Mom's new car." Emma squealed and ran around to the other side, where Rebecca was already getting out. "Mom, Daddy got you a new car. Did you know? Did you know?" Rebecca pulled Emma into a hug, meeting Ted's eyes over their daughter's head. "No, sweetheart, I didn't know. Daddy surprised me." Ted's mother, Carol, approached more slowly, her experienced eyes taking in the scene. The elaborate bow now discarded on the ground, the tension radiating between her son and daughter-in-law, the forced smiles. She'd raised Ted through a divorce of her own. She knew the signs. "Emma, honey, why don't you help Grandma make some hot chocolate inside?" Carol suggested gently. "Let Mom and Dad talk for a minute." "But I want to see the new car." "You can see it later," Carol promised, guiding Emma toward the house. She paused beside Ted, squeezing his shoulder. "Call me if you need me," she whispered. When they were alone again, Rebecca ran her hand along the RAV4's hood. "It's beautiful, Ted. Really beautiful. How did you—" "Weekend consulting work," he said. "For 6 months. I wanted you to have something reliable. Something that would keep you safe." Tears spilled down Rebecca's cheeks. "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you." "No," Ted said quietly. "You don't. Because I would never have done what you did. I would never have kept something this big from you for 3 months. I would have trusted you enough to tell you the truth." "I was scared," Rebecca admitted. "Scared you'd shoot it down immediately. Scared you'd make me choose between my marriage and my career before I even knew if I had a real shot at the job." "And now you have to choose anyway," Ted said. "Except now it's real. Now it's not hypothetical. Now it's our actual life on the line." Rebecca leaned against the car looking exhausted. "What if we don't have to choose? What if we could make it work? Atlanta isn't that far. You could find work there. Emma could—" "Don't," Ted cut her off. "Don't pretend this is about logistics. This is about trust, Rebecca. This is about partnership. You made plans for our entire family without including me. You brought another man into our home, into our bedroom, without telling me. You lied to your principal to take a personal day. You've been lying to me every single day for 3 months. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you. That's the same thing." Ted's voice rose and he forced himself to lower it, aware of Emma inside. "In a marriage, that's the exact same thing." Rebecca pushed off the car, her own anger flaring. "You want to talk about partnership? About trust? What about when you took that contracting job in Raleigh last year without asking me first? You were gone every week, Monday through Thursday, for 2 months. Did you ask me how I felt about being a single parent 4 days a week? That's completely different. Is it? Or is it only different because I'm supposed to be the one who stays home, who stays small, who's grateful for whatever scraps of ambition don't interfere with your career?" Ted felt like he'd been slapped. "I have never asked you to stay small. Never." "You don't have to ask," Rebecca said, her voice breaking. "It's just understood. Your job is important. Your career matters. Your construction sites and your projects and your 60-hour weeks during busy season, those are non-negotiable. But the moment I have an opportunity, the moment I want something for myself, suddenly it's a betrayal. The betrayal isn't wanting something for yourself, Ted said through clenched teeth. The betrayal is lying about it. The betrayal is Preston Caldwell's hand on your shoulder in our bedroom. Rebecca's face paled. Nothing happened with Preston. I swear to you. Then why do I feel like something did? Ted demanded. Why do I feel like I'm the last person to know about my own wife's life? Before Rebecca could respond, Emma's voice called from the front door. Mom! Dad! Grandma says dinner's ready. They both froze, remembering suddenly that they had a daughter who needed them, who couldn't see them falling apart. We should go inside, Rebecca said quietly. We should eat with Emma. We can talk more after she goes to bed. Ted nodded, not trusting his voice. They walked into the house side by side, not touching, a chasm opening between them with every step. Dinner was torture. Carol had made Emma's favorite, spaghetti with meat sauce, and Emma chattered nonstop about her day, about her friend Madison's upcoming birthday party, about the art project they were starting in class next week. She didn't seem to notice the way her parents barely spoke, barely looked at each other, barely ate. Or maybe she did notice, because halfway through dinner, Emma put down her fork and said, "Are you guys fighting?" The question hung in the air. Ted and Rebecca exchanged glances. "No, baby," Rebecca said quickly. "We're just tired." "You always say that," Emma said, her 7-year-old wisdom cutting through the lie. "But I know what fighting looks like. Madison's parents fight all the time before they got divorced." "We're not getting divorced," Ted said automatically, then wondered if he was lying to his daughter. After dinner, Carol took Emma home with her for a sleepover. Ted suspected his mother had planned this, giving them space to work through whatever was happening. Emma hugged them both goodbye, holding on a little longer than usual. When the house was finally empty, Ted and Rebecca sat in the living room, the same room where they'd celebrated anniversaries and birthdays, where Emma had taken her first steps, where they'd made 1,000 ordinary memories that now felt impossibly precious. "Talk to me," Ted said. "Tell me everything. The truth this time." So Rebecca talked. She told him about the education conference in July, where she'd presented a paper on integrated learning strategies. She told him about Preston approaching her afterward, impressed by her ideas, talking about how traditional education was changing, how consultants were shaping policy at state and federal levels, how Meridian Educational Consulting was at the forefront of that change. "He gave me his card," Rebecca said. "I wasn't going to call, but then I looked up the company, and Ted, they're doing incredible work. They're actually making a difference in how schools operate, how teachers are trained, how curriculum is developed. It's everything I went into education to do, but on a scale I never dreamed possible." "So you called him," Ted said, 2 weeks later, "just to ask questions, to learn more." "He invited me to visit their Atlanta office, said I could see the operation firsthand. I told him I'd think about it. And then, and then he called me in September. Said they had an opening. Said I'd be perfect for it. Said he'd been thinking about our conversation all summer, about my ideas, my vision. He asked if I'd be interested in interviewing." "And you said yes," Rebecca nodded. "I said yes. But Ted, I swear, I was going to tell you after the first interview. But they moved so fast. They wanted me to come back for a second interview the next week, and then a third. And somewhere in there, it stopped being hypothetical and started being real, and I got scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared that if I told you, you'd make me turn it down. Scared that I'd have to choose. Scared that—" She trailed off. "Scared that what, Rebecca?" She met his eyes, and he saw something raw and honest there. "Scared that if I had to choose, I might choose the job. And what kind of wife, what kind of mother does that make me?" If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you would have done in Ted's situation. Ted felt something shift inside him. This was it. The truth he'd been circling around all afternoon. Rebecca wanted the job more than she wanted their marriage. Maybe not more than she wanted Emma, but definitely more than she wanted him. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," Rebecca admitted. "They need an answer by Monday morning. They're flying me out to Atlanta tomorrow to show me the apartment they'd provide. It's part of the compensation package. A fully furnished two-bedroom in Midtown while we look for a permanent place. They're providing an apartment, Ted repeated slowly, so they expect you to move immediately. The position starts January 2nd. They want me settled before then. That's 6 weeks away, Rebecca. Christmas is in 6 weeks. I know. What about Emma? What about her school, her friends, her life? We'd enroll her in a school in Atlanta. A good one. The district they recommended has excellent ratings. Better than what she's getting here, honestly. And me? Ted asked. What about me? Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. You could come with us. I meant what I said earlier. You could find work in Atlanta. Maybe even better work. We could make this a fresh start for all of us. Or, Ted prompted, because he could hear the unspoken alternative hanging in the air. Or we could try long distance for a while, Rebecca said carefully. I could go ahead, get settled, start the job. You and Emma could stay here until the school year ends. Then we could reassess, figure out what makes sense. Long distance, Ted said. So you take the job either way. That's what you're saying. Whether I come with you or not, you're taking the job. Rebecca's silence was answer enough. Ted stood up, pacing to the window. Outside, the RAV4 still sat in the driveway, a monument to his ignorance. I need to know something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Has anything physical happened between you and Preston? No, Rebecca said immediately. Ted, no. I swear on Emma's life. He's been professional, supportive, yes, encouraging, yes, but professional. Then why do I feel like I'm competing with him? Ted asked, turning back to face her. Why do I feel like he knows things about you, about your dreams, about your thoughts, that I don't know? Rebecca's eyes filled with tears again. Because maybe he does. Because maybe I told him things I was afraid to tell you. Not because you judge me, but because I knew you'd be hurt. I knew you'd feel exactly how you're feeling right now, like I'm choosing something else over you. You are choosing something else over me, Ted said. That's exactly what's happening. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. Ted's voice rose despite himself. I'm standing here telling you I don't want you to go. I'm telling you our daughter doesn't want you to go. I'm telling you we built a life here together, and I thought that life meant something to you. But apparently it doesn't mean as much as a fancy title and Preston Caldwell's mentorship in an apartment in Midtown Atlanta. That's not fair, Rebecca protested. This isn't about Preston. This is about my career, my future, my identity beyond being your wife and Emma's mother. I have never asked you to be nothing but my wife and Emma's mother, Ted said, and he could hear the pain in his own voice. I have always supported your teaching. I've covered for you when you had late meetings. I've taken Emma to activities so you could work on your lesson plans. I've been proud of you, so don't act like I've been holding you back all these years. You haven't been holding me back, Rebecca said quietly, but you haven't been pushing me forward either. Preston saw something in me, Ted. He saw potential I didn't even see in myself. He made me believe I could be more than I am. And there it was, the heart of it. Preston had made her feel seen in a way Ted apparently hadn't. Preston had validated her in ways that a construction manager husband and a third-grade teaching job never could. Ted felt something inside him harden. When are you leaving for Atlanta tomorrow? Early, 7 a.m. flight. Preston's picking me up at 6 to take me to the airport. Of course he was. So this is it, Ted said. This is you making your choice. I'm not choosing between you and the job, Rebecca insisted. I need to see it. I need to see the life they're offering before I can make an informed decision. You've already made your decision, Ted said. You made it 3 months ago when you started keeping secrets. You made it today when you took that call and smiled. You're going to take that job, Rebecca. We both know it. So stop pretending this is still up in the air. Rebecca stood up, her hands shaking. Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I want to take the job. Yes, I think it's the opportunity of a lifetime. Yes, I think moving to Atlanta could be amazing for all of us. And yes, I wish you could be happy for me instead of acting like I'm betraying you by wanting something more than this life we have here. This life we have here, Ted repeated. You mean the life where I work my ass off to provide for our family? Where I save for 6 months to buy you a car because I love you? where our daughter has friends and stability and two parents who are actually present? That life? Yes, Rebecca said, and now she was crying openly. That safe, predictable, small life. I'm grateful for it, Ted. I am. But I'm also suffocating in it. The words hit Ted like bullets. Suffocating. She felt suffocated by their life together. Then go, he said quietly. Go to Atlanta tomorrow. See your apartment, meet your new colleagues, start your new life. But don't ask me and Emma to come with you. Don't ask us to give up everything we have here so you can stop feeling suffocated. Ted, please. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight, he said, moving toward the stairs. You can take the bedroom. You'll need to rest for your big day tomorrow. Don't do this, Rebecca begged. Don't shut down. Talk to me. Fight with me if you have to, but don't just walk away. Ted paused on the stairs, looking back at his wife of 12 years. She looked beautiful and terrible in that red dress, her makeup smeared, her eyes desperate. What's left to fight for, Rebecca? You've already won. You're getting everything you want. I'm not getting you, she whispered. I'm losing you. You lost me the moment you decided I wasn't enough, Ted said. Then he climbed the stairs and closed the guest room door behind him. He sat on the edge of the bed they kept made up for his mother's visits, and finally let himself feel the full weight of what was happening. His marriage was ending. Maybe not officially, not yet, but the truth of it sat heavy in his chest. Rebecca was leaving. She'd already left, really. He'd just been too blind to see it until today. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ted, this is Preston again. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I think you deserve to know the whole story before you make any decisions about your marriage. Meet me tomorrow. 10 a.m., Cooper's Coffee on Trade Street. Come alone. Ted stared at the message. Every instinct told him to delete it, to block the number, to never speak to this man who'd invaded his life. But another part of him, the part that needed answers, that couldn't let this go without understanding, wanted to know what Preston had to say. What could Preston possibly tell him that would change anything? What whole story was there beyond a man recruiting Ted's wife and charming her with promises of a better life? Ted typed back before he could stop himself. Fine, 10 a.m., but this better be worth my time. The response came immediately. It will be. Trust me, Ted. Nothing about this situation is what you think it is. Ted turned off his phone and lay back on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. Downstairs, he could hear Rebecca moving around, probably packing for her trip tomorrow. In 6 hours, she'd be gone. Preston would pick her up, drive her to the airport, fly with her to Atlanta, show her the life she could have. And Ted would be here, in this house, with the ghost of their marriage and a brand new car in the driveway that nobody wanted. But tomorrow at 10 a.m., he'd meet Preston Caldwell. And whatever the man had to say, whatever this whole story was, Ted would finally get some answers. He just had no idea how much he was going to wish he'd never asked the questions. Because Preston Caldwell was about to reveal something that would change everything Ted thought he knew about his wife, his marriage, and the last 3 months of lies. And once Ted heard the truth, there would be no going back. Ted woke at 5:30 to the sound of Rebecca moving around downstairs. He'd barely slept, drifting in and out of anxious dreams where he chased Rebecca through endless hallways while Preston Caldwell's laughter echoed around him. Through the guest room window, he could see the first gray light of dawn breaking over their neighborhood. Ordinary Saturday morning in a life that would never be ordinary again. He heard a car pull up outside. Preston, right on schedule. Ted stood at the window and watched his wife walk out the front door with a small rolling suitcase. She was wearing jeans and a sweater now, her hair in a simple ponytail, looking more like the Rebecca he'd fallen in love with than the polished stranger in the red dress from yesterday. Preston got out to help with her luggage, opening the passenger door of his sleek Mercedes sedan. They exchanged words Ted couldn't hear, and then Rebecca glanced back at the house. For a moment, Ted thought she might come back inside, might change her mind, might choose them after all. But she got in the car. Preston closed the door, and they drove away. Ted stood at the window long after the Mercedes disappeared around the corner. His phone showed 6:05 a.m., 4 hours until his meeting with Preston. 4 hours to decide if he was making a huge mistake. He showered, dressed, and made coffee he didn't drink. The house felt hollow without Emma's morning energy, without Rebecca humming in the kitchen as she made breakfast. Just Ted and the memories and the deafening silence. At 9:30, he texted his mother, "Can you keep Emma one more day? Something's come up." Her response came quickly. "Of course. Everything okay?" "Getting there," he lied. "Thanks, Mom." Ted arrived at Cooper's Coffee at 9:55, a downtown cafe he'd never been to before. Neutral territory, he supposed. The place was busy with Saturday morning crowd. Young professionals with laptops, families with kids in high chairs, couples sharing pastries. Normal people having normal Saturday mornings while Ted's world disintegrated. Preston was already there, sitting at a corner table with two coffees waiting. He wore jeans and a casual button-down, looking significantly less intimidating than yesterday's expensive suit. When he saw Ted, he stood and extended his hand. Ted ignored it and sat down. "I got you a black coffee," Preston said, settling back into his chair. "Rebecca mentioned you take it straight." "Let's skip the pleasantries," Ted said coldly. "You texted me saying nothing is what I think it is. So talk. Explain to me why I shouldn't hate you for recruiting my wife and filling her head with dreams that require destroying my family." Preston took a sip of his coffee, seemingly unbothered by Ted's hostility. "First, I need you to understand something. I didn't recruit Rebecca. She recruited herself." "That's a load of—" "Let me finish," Preston interrupted calmly. "I met Rebecca at a conference in July. She gave a brilliant presentation on integrated learning models that most of the room couldn't follow. But I could. You know why?" Ted said nothing. "Because my wife was a teacher," Preston continued. "Elementary school, just like Rebecca. Third grade, actually. She had the same fire, the same passion for changing how we educate kids. She talked about it constantly, how the system was broken, how teachers were undervalued, how she wanted to make a real difference beyond her classroom." "Wanted?" Ted caught the past tense. Preston's expression darkened. "Sarah died 4 years ago. Brain aneurysm. She was 36 years old. One minute she was making lesson plans at our kitchen table, the next minute she was gone." Ted felt a flicker of something, sympathy maybe, or recognition of shared pain. "I'm sorry." "Thank you," Preston said quietly. "I tell you this because you need to understand that when I see someone like Rebecca, someone with Sarah's same passion and brilliance and frustration with the limitations of classroom teaching, I see my late wife. I see what Sarah could have become if she'd lived, if she'd had the chance to expand her impact beyond those four walls." "So this is about your dead wife?" Ted asked, not unkindly. "You're trying to give Rebecca the opportunities Sarah never got?" "Partly," Preston admitted, "but it's more complicated than that. Ted, there are things about Meridian Educational Consulting that Rebecca doesn't know. Things I've been trying to figure out how to tell her before she makes an irreversible decision." Something cold settled in Ted's stomach. "What things?" Preston pulled out his phone, opened his email, and slid it across the table. "Read these. Then we'll talk." Ted looked down at a chain of emails between Preston and someone named Douglas Merrick, identified in the signature as CEO Meridian Educational Consulting Group. The most recent was dated 3 days ago. From Douglas Merrick. Subject RE Hayes Recruitment. "Preston, your concerns about Rebecca Hayes' family situation are noted but irrelevant. Our expansion timeline requires bodies in seats by January 2nd. If she can't commit, we'll move to the next candidate. I didn't build this company by coddling employees' personal dramas. Her presentation skills and educational credentials are exactly what we need for the state contracts we're pursuing. Once she's onboarded, she'll understand that her job is to legitimize our recommendations to school districts, not to question our profit margins. Close the deal, or I'll find someone who will." DM Ted felt sick as he scrolled backward through the chain. Other emails revealed a picture of Meridian that was very different from what Rebecca had described. References to manufactured research, friendly consultants, pressure to recommend specific, expensive curriculum programs to schools regardless of actual educational merit. "What is this?" Ted looked up at Preston. "This company is a scam?" "Not entirely," Preston said carefully. "We do some legitimate consulting work. But over the past year, Merrick has been pushing us towards something closer to a kickback scheme. Educational publishers pay us to recommend their materials to school districts. We generate impressive-looking research reports, send in consultants like Rebecca to make presentations, and districts buy materials that may or may not actually help their students. And you're part of this? I was, Preston said, his jaw tight, until about 6 months ago, when I started noticing the pattern. I raised concerns with Merrick. He made it clear that questioning the model was a career-limiting move. I've been looking for another job since March, but I can't just quit. I need the health insurance. My son has type 1 diabetes. So instead, you recruit innocent teachers to be the face of your corrupt operation? Ted's hands clenched into fists. You're making Rebecca complicit in fraud? No, Preston said urgently. That's why I'm telling you this. That's why I texted you last night. Ted, I like Rebecca. She reminds me of Sarah. Idealistic, brilliant, genuinely wanting to help kids. I can't let her walk into this situation blind. But if I tell her directly, Merrick will destroy my career and I'll lose my insurance. My son's insulin costs $1,800 a month. Ted felt his head spinning. Why are you telling me then? What am I supposed to do with this? Show her, Preston said simply. Take screenshots of these emails. Show Rebecca what kind of company she's actually joining. Let her make an informed decision instead of the fairy tale Merrick sold her. She'll know the emails came from you. Probably, but I can claim my phone was hacked or something. The important thing is that she knows the truth before she says yes on Monday. Preston leaned forward. Ted, I watched my wife die without ever getting to pursue her dreams beyond the classroom. I'm not going to watch another brilliant teacher get chewed up by a corrupt system, especially when I have the power to stop it. Ted took screenshots of the emails, his hands shaking slightly. Why did you have your hand on her shoulder yesterday? In our bedroom? Preston blinked, surprised by the question. What? When I walked in, you had your hand on her shoulder. Understanding dawned on Preston's face. She was nervous about the video interview. Shaking, actually. I was trying to steady her, help her focus. It lasted maybe 5 seconds. He paused. Ted, I know how this looks. I know what you think might be happening between Rebecca and me. But I swear to you, there's nothing romantic. There never has been. She talks about you constantly. Ted did this. Ted said that. Even when she's frustrated with you, it's clear she loves you. She has a funny way of showing it, Ted said bitterly. She's scared, Preston said. Scared of being stuck. Scared of becoming invisible. You know teachers' salaries haven't kept pace with inflation? You know how many teachers work second jobs just to survive? Rebecca's been teaching for 11 years, Ted. She makes $52,000 a year. That's $4,300 a month before taxes. Do you know what someone with her education and talent could make in almost any other field? So she should just abandon everything? Ted challenged. Her family, her daughter's stability, her husband's career, all for money? No, Preston said. She should make an informed decision with all the facts, including the fact that Meridian's offer isn't what it seems, including the fact that her husband loves her enough to buy her a car with money he saved in secret, including the fact that sometimes the grass isn't greener, it's just astroturf painted green. They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the cafe continued its normal Saturday rhythm, utterly unaware of the conversation happening in the corner. There's something else, Preston said quietly. Something I found yesterday that made me decide I had to tell you everything. He pulled out a folder from the bag beside his chair and slid it across the table. Inside were financial documents, Meridian's internal accounting records. I shouldn't have these, Preston said. I could be fired, possibly prosecuted, for showing you, but Rebecca needs to know. Ted scanned the documents. His construction background made him comfortable reading financial statements, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Meridian Educational Consulting showed massive revenue from consultant placements, but minimal spending on actual research or educational program development. The money flow was clear. Publishers paid Meridian, Meridian paid consultants to recommend those publishers' materials. Everyone made money except the schools and students. The position they're offering Rebecca, Preston continued, isn't about her educational expertise. It's about her credibility. She's young, she's accomplished, she's photogenic, and she has an authentic teaching background. Merrick wants to put her in front of school boards across the Southeast to sell them overpriced curriculum packages. She'll think she's changing education. Really, she'll be a glorified saleswoman. Ted thought about Rebecca's face when she talked about Meridian yesterday. The excitement, the sense of purpose, the belief that she'd finally be making a difference on a larger scale. This will break her heart. Better to have her heart broken by the truth than by realizing 2 years from now that she destroyed her marriage for a lie, Preston said. Ted looked at the man across from him, this stranger who'd invaded his life 24 hours ago and who now sat offering him ammunition to win his wife back. Why are you really doing this? The truth. Preston was quiet for a long moment. Because when Sarah died, I was traveling for work. I'd been gone 3 days. We'd fought before I left about me taking the job that required so much travel. She'd wanted me to stay local, take less money, be home more. I'd convinced her the sacrifice was worth it, that the career opportunity was too good to pass up. His voice cracked slightly. She died alone at our kitchen table because I chose ambition over being present. I found her when I got home. Jesus, Ted breathed. So when I see you, someone who clearly loves his wife, who works extra jobs to buy her a car, who wants to keep his family together, and I see Rebecca about to make a choice that could destroy the best thing in her life for something that isn't even real. Preston shook his head. I can't let that happen. I can't watch another family break apart because someone believed the lie that career success matters more than being present for the people you love. Ted felt his throat tighten. She might not believe me. She might think I'm sabotaging her on purpose. Then you make sure the evidence is undeniable, Preston said. Forward yourself those email screenshots. Download these financial documents. Hell, I'll write you an affidavit if you need it. But get her the information before she commits to something she'll regret. Ted nodded slowly, downloading the files to his phone. What happens to you when this comes out? I'll probably be fired, Preston admitted, but I've been interviewing elsewhere. I have 2 promising leads, and honestly, I'll sleep better unemployed than I have in 6 months watching this company corrupt good people. They stood to leave. This time when Preston extended his hand, Ted shook it. Take care of her, Preston said. She's one of the good ones. I know, Ted replied. That's why this hurts so much. Ted drove home in a daze, his phone full of damning evidence about Meridian Educational Consulting. Rebecca wasn't home yet. Her flight wouldn't land until late afternoon. He had hours to figure out how to tell her that her dream job was actually a nightmare. He sat at their kitchen table, the same table where they'd shared thousands of meals, where Emma did her homework, where they'd made plans and laughed and lived their ordinary life. He opened his laptop and began organizing the evidence. Emails, financial documents, screenshots. He created a simple presentation, just facts and figures, no emotional manipulation. At 4:30, he heard a car pull up. Rebecca was home. She came through the door looking tired but glowing, her eyes bright with excitement. Ted, you should see it. The apartment is incredible. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the Atlanta skyline, completely furnished with modern everything. And the office, it's like something out of a magazine. Everyone was so welcoming, so warm. They even... She stopped, seeing his expression. What's wrong? Sit down, Ted said quietly. We need to talk. If this is about yesterday, sit down, Rebecca. Something in his tone made her comply. She sat across from him at their kitchen table, her excitement dimming to confusion and wariness. Ted turned his laptop toward her. I met with Preston this morning. He showed me some things about Meridian that you need to see. For the next 30 minutes, Ted walked his wife through everything. The emails, the financial documents, the kickback scheme disguised as educational consulting. He watched her face transform from confusion to disbelief to horror as the evidence mounted. No, she kept saying. No, that can't be right. They're doing important work. Preston said. Preston is the one who showed me this, Ted interrupted gently. Rebecca, he likes you. He wants you to know the truth before you commit to something that will destroy your integrity. Rebecca's hands shook as she scrolled through the emails on Ted's laptop. They want me to lie to school boards? To sell them materials that don't actually help students? The specific language is legitimize our recommendations. Ted read from one email. You'd be the authentic teacher giving credibility to their profit scheme. Oh, God. Rebecca pushed away from the table, her hand over her mouth. Oh, God, Ted, I almost destroyed our family for this? I almost moved Emma away from everything she knows, made you give up your job, ruined our marriage, all to be a corporate shill. Tears streamed down her face, and Ted felt his anger from yesterday soften into something more complicated. She hadn't known. She'd been manipulated, recruited specifically because of her authenticity and passion, qualities that would make her the perfect unwitting accomplice. What am I going to do? Rebecca whispered. I was supposed to call them Monday morning with my answer. They're expecting me to say yes. There's an apartment waiting, employment contracts, everything. You're going to say no, Ted said firmly. You're going to thank them for the opportunity and decline. And then you're going to come home to your family and figure out what you really want, not what some corrupt CEO wants to use you for. Rebecca sank into a chair, her whole body shaking with sobs. I'm so sorry, Ted. I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I should have told you from the beginning. I should have trusted you. Instead, I trusted Preston and Merrick and this fantasy of being more than I am, and I almost... She couldn't finish the sentence. Ted moved around the table and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands. You are more than this. You're an incredible teacher. You're the woman Emma looks up to more than anyone. You're my wife, and I love you, even when I'm furious with you. Even when I don't understand your choices. I don't deserve you, Rebecca sobbed. I don't deserve this family. Probably not, Ted agreed, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. But you're stuck with us anyway. That's what marriage means. Even when one of us does something stupid and hurtful, we figure out how to come back from it. How do we come back from this? Rebecca asked, looking at him with red, swollen eyes. How do I earn your trust again? Honestly, Ted sat back on his heels. I don't know yet. This hurt, Rebecca. These past 24 hours have been the worst of my life. Finding you with Preston, hearing about 3 months of secrets, watching you get excited about leaving us, it gutted me. I know, and I'm so sorry. But, Ted continued, I think we can get through it. If you're willing to be completely honest from now on, if you're willing to go to couples counseling, if you're willing to figure out why you felt suffocated by our life and what we can do differently so you never feel that way again. Rebecca nodded frantically. Yes, anything. Ted, I'll do anything. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose this. She gestured around their kitchen, their home. I was an idiot to think anything could be better than what we have here. You weren't an idiot, Ted said, surprising himself with his own generosity. You were someone who felt unseen and undervalued, and when someone came along and made you feel important, you chased that feeling. I get it. I do. But we need to figure out how to make sure you feel seen and valued here in this marriage, so you don't go looking for it somewhere else. They sat together in the kitchen as the afternoon light faded to evening. Rebecca called Merrick's office and left a voicemail declining the position, citing personal circumstances that require me to stay in Charlotte. She blocked Preston's number, not out of anger, but because they both agreed clean boundaries were necessary moving forward. What about the RAV4? Rebecca asked eventually. It's sitting out there with that stupid bow, and every time I look at it, I feel like the world's worst wife. The RAV4 is yours, Ted said firmly. I bought it for you because I love you. That doesn't change just because we're going through something hard. You deserve to have a safe, reliable car. But you were saving for 6 months. And I'd do it again, Ted interrupted. Rebecca, I'm angry and hurt, but I still love you. Those feelings can exist at the same time. The anger will fade eventually. The love won't. Fresh tears spilled down Rebecca's cheeks. How did I get so lucky to have you? You didn't, Ted said with a small smile. I'm the lucky one. You just forgot that for a little while. That evening, they picked up Emma together from Ted's mother's house. Emma was overjoyed to see them both, chattering about her sleepover and showing them the pictures she'd drawn of their family. Stick figures of Ted, Rebecca, and Emma holding hands under a bright sun. Is everything okay now? Emma asked in the car ride home, her 7-year-old intuition picking up on the shift in her parents' energy. "Getting there, baby girl," Rebecca said from the passenger seat of the RAV4, her RAV4 now, the red bow finally removed. "Getting there. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel because what happens next in this family's journey might surprise you. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on second chances and rebuilding trust." In the weeks that followed, Ted and Rebecca began the hard work of rebuilding their marriage. They started couples, counseling with a therapist named Dr. Patricia Chen, who didn't let either of them off easy. She pushed Rebecca to explore why she'd felt suffocated, what she really wanted from her career, and how she could pursue growth without sacrificing her family. She pushed Ted to examine whether he'd been truly present in their marriage or just going through the motions, whether he'd taken Rebecca's contentment for granted. It wasn't easy. There were difficult sessions where they both cried, where old resentments surfaced, where Ted's hurt and Rebecca's guilt threatened to overwhelm them. But they kept showing up. They kept choosing each other. Rebecca started looking into local educational consulting opportunities, legitimate ones, with companies that valued teachers and wanted to improve education rather than exploit it. She found a part-time position with a nonprofit that trained teachers in underserved schools, work that let her expand her impact while still teaching 3 days a week. The pay was modest, but the fulfillment was real. Ted started leaving work at 5 o'clock 3 days a week, no matter how busy the construction site was. He realized that he'd been using work as a shield, a way to feel successful and important, while missing moments with Emma and Rebecca that he could never get back. He coached Emma's soccer team. He took cooking classes with Rebecca on Thursday nights. He learned to be present. They celebrated Christmas in their Charlotte home, surrounded by family and friends, the RAV4 parked safely in the garage. Emma got a microscope she'd been begging for. Rebecca gave Ted a framed photo of their family at Emma's last soccer game, all three of them laughing, captured in a moment of pure joy. Ted gave Rebecca something unexpected: enrollment in an online master's program in educational policy through UNC Chapel Hill. "If you want to make a bigger impact," he'd said when she opened the acceptance letter, "do it the right way. Get the credentials, build the expertise, and then change the system from a position of knowledge and integrity." She'd cried and held him and whispered, "Thank you for believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself." Preston Caldwell emailed Ted once, about 3 weeks after their coffee meeting. "Wanted you to know I quit Meridian, found a position with a legitimate educational foundation in Washington, D.C. Starting fresh. How's Rebecca?" Ted had shown Rebecca the email. Together they composed a response. Rebecca declined the Meridian offer. She's pursuing legitimate work in education while rebuilding her teaching career and her marriage. "Thank you for your honesty. It saved us. We hope you find peace." Preston had replied simply, "Sarah would be glad I did the right thing. Be well." On Valentine's Day, 6 months after the worst day of their marriage, Ted and Rebecca renewed their wedding vows in a small ceremony in their backyard. Emma served as the flower girl and the maid of honor, and the ring bearer all at once, taking her duties very seriously. When Ted looked at Rebecca, beautiful in a simple white dress, her eyes clear and honest, her hands steady in his, he thought about how close they'd come to losing everything. How a series of small choices and secret conversations had nearly destroyed 12 years of love and partnership. But they'd survived, more than survived. They'd grown. They'd learned that trust wasn't just given on a wedding day. It had to be earned and maintained and sometimes rebuilt from the foundation up. They'd learned that feeling suffocated in a relationship meant you needed to speak up and work together, not make secret plans and keep secrets. They'd learned that ambition was healthy, but not at the cost of integrity or family. "I promise," Rebecca said during the ceremony, her voice strong and clear, "to never keep secrets that affect us both. To trust you enough to tell you my dreams, even when I'm scared. To remember that we're a team, and teams don't make plays without communicating." "I promise," Ted said, his own voice thick with emotion, "to never take you for granted. To see you not just as my wife, but as the incredible woman you are. To support your dreams while building ours together. To always choose us, even when it's hard." Emma cheered. Ted's mother cried. Their friends applauded. And as Ted kissed his wife, really kissed her, With all the love and hurt and forgiveness and hope that lived in his heart, he thought about the RAV4 parked in their driveway, the car he'd bought to surprise her with love and ended up using to remind them both that material things meant nothing compared to the real work of being present, being honest, being partners in every sense of the word. Sometimes the best surprises aren't the ones wrapped in red bows. Sometimes they're the ones that come after everything falls apart. The surprise of discovering you're stronger than you thought, that love can survive betrayal, that truth, even painful truth, is always better than comfortable lies. Ted Hayes was 38 years old, and 6 months ago his marriage had nearly ended in their bedroom on a cold November afternoon. But standing in his backyard on Valentine's Day, holding his wife's hand while their daughter threw flower petals in the air, he realized something profound. Sometimes you have to lose everything to remember what really matters. And what really mattered was standing right beside him, promising to build a life not of secrets and suffocation, but of honesty and growth and choosing each other every single day. The lesson Ted learned, the one he'd carry with him forever, was simple but powerful. Love isn't about grand gestures or perfect surprises. It's about showing up when things get hard. It's about telling the truth even when you're scared. It's about forgiving even when you're hurt. And most importantly, it's about remembering that the life you have might not be perfect, but if you're building it with someone you love, with honesty and presence and commitment, it's more valuable than any opportunity that requires you to sacrifice your integrity or your family to achieve it. If you enjoyed this story, like this video, and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.